Assalamu alaikum, family. You're tuned into the Sajdah channel, and I'm your host, Sajdah Wendy Muhammad, and we're going to have some fun today talking about life, love, and business. And I have a few announcements for you, and we're going to go from there. All right, so be a friend and tell a friend, and we'll be right back after a few short commercials and a beautiful prayer.
O Allah, guide me among those whom Thou hast guided aright, and preserve me among those whom Thou hast preserved, and befriend me among those whom Thou hast befriended. Bless me in whatsoever Thou dost grant me, and deliver me from the evil of what Thou hast judged. Surely Thou judgest, and none can judge against Thee. And he whom Thou befriendest is not disgraced. Blessed art Thou, O Lord, and exalted be Thee above what they set up besides Thee. I bear witness, nothing deserves to be served besides Thee. And I bear witness that Muhammad is Thy servant and apostle. Amen.
Assalamu alaikum, family. You're tuned into the Sajdah Morning Coffee Talks, and I am your host, Sajdah Wendy Muhammad. Welcome, welcome this morning. I hope everyone is doing well. Forgive me because I've been having a sneeze attack all of a sudden. I don't know if it's all this crazy rain or whatever is going on. Yeah, we've been having some next level weather here in the Chicagoland area. In the city, it hasn't been too bad, but I know for a lot of people that live in the southern suburbs they're really suffering. A lot of people with no power and all of that. So we're sending them our prayers. I was going to say something about real estate, but I'm going to wait. We'll have a real estate conversation later. So yeah, how's everybody doing? I hope we're doing well. Yesterday, Coffee Talk went well. We did a salute to our sister Shalom Muhammad. May Allah be pleased with her. And I think that went well. You guys got a chance to get reacquainted with her. Those of you that are on the show or friends of the show and saw her when she was on back in 2003. And just to celebrate her courage and her bravery, I thought that it went well and it was a good show. And I'm grateful for her courage. But very informational, like Speed said. It was heartbreaking, but informational because, I think sometimes what happens to a lot of us when we, are moving forward and getting a little money and we move out of the neighborhood, if you will, because we feel like, okay, my child's going to be safer. They're going to get to go to a better school. And sometimes some of the most atrocious things happen in these so-called better neighborhoods. And so we see things going on with these people, our young boys being drowned and jumped. And when they fight back, they get an astronomical amount of years in jail. We have to really go back to teaching our children and being mindful ourselves about where we go and what it is that we do. We have to be very mindful about that. And even if you're at work and there's work outings and things like that, make sure that you're not doing something where you're so isolated. You just never know what's in people's brains. And sometimes a little alcohol brings out that tongue that tells what's on a person's mind. The actions change. So we got to be mindful of all of that kind of thing. And I know growing up, we didn't get to spend the night over people's house. And, even when I got into corporate America, certain outings I just didn't go to, because I was in a field where oftentimes I'd be the only Black person, maybe the only woman. And I just don't think that you can be so sure of how things are going to go down. And there are so many women that went to a party and, got caught up, unfortunately, with people who are not right, that, sexually assaulted them. There are so many women who ended up, never getting high in their life and then going to a party and somebody introduces them to a crack pipe. And next thing you know, their whole college career and everything is thwarted because they got caught up. So we have to be open with teaching our children these things. There's a lot of things that we don't know, but just making sure that we at least are beginning to have these conversations. There's a new epidemic out now where we have, I know 2 or 3 people that have young boys who, are hanging out with people and they smoking these weird drugs, and that stuff is harder for them to shake than, anything else. And it creates some real crazy addictions. And so we have to be careful with that. So we as Black people, and this conversation has been coming up a lot lately, with people from other cultures, especially other Black people. And I know that there's a lot where a lot of people don't understand us as freed Black people here in the United States of America. A lot of people don't understand us. I think we're probably the most mimicked group of Black people on the planet. Our culture is really strong, and people tend to harvest from our culture and use it to create something that they end up monetizing. But for whatever reason, you know, it's a love-hate with us. And then there's a lot of making fun of us because we really don't know who we are or where we came from in many cases. And, we don't know if we were part of a boat that came over from Africa that dropped off some people in the Caribbean and some in Central America and then brought us here to these shores. We don't know if we're part of the thousands of people who are native to what later became America. Because and here's the interesting thing about that I found in my research, and we know, I don't know if you know this or not, but we were here before Columbus. Okay, so there's a book by Ivan Van Sertima that talks about we came before Columbus. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad talks about the group of us that walked here through the Bering Straits. There's a group, many of us are migrants. The Fulani people are migrants. They walk, they navigate. But then there were some. So there's categories when you start talking about the native people. And let me break this down for you all, because the lie that we've been told is huge. Okay. So first of all, we've been here thousands of years. Not only have we occupied the planet for trillions of years, but we've been here in America for thousands of years. There were Black people already here. Okay. There's stories about Mansa Musa's brother, Abu Bakari, who gave up his throne to come here and live in America. There were Black captains who documented the route on how to get to the Americas, which the Spain ended up getting and giving to half original Christopher Columbus. Y'all know he was mixed, and he wasn't quite following the map right, but that's how they learned how to navigate. So our people have been navigating back and forth across the Atlantic for thousands of years. Here in the Americas, whether it was North America or South America, you had some groups of people that were advanced members of the society. They had buildings, they had energy harvesting systems, they built pyramids. One of the largest pyramids in North America is right in northern Louisiana. So you had that group that was very advanced, okay? And even down to a lot of these buildings that they tell y'all that they made in the 1800s that look just like buildings in Greece, buildings in Spain, buildings in Russia. Don't tell me that they showed up with a horse and buggy and a chisel and built these massive buildings. They weren't always cathedrals. They weren't always a school or a library. Many of those people were killed. Those Black people that were here, that were members of those advanced society, many of them were slaughtered. Okay. Then there's a group that were migrants who were migrating from, you'll see us in Alaska, you see us in Hawaii. They were migrating from north to south and back and forth. There were some that were a little bit more, quote unquote, primitive in that they oftentimes were the ones who signed the treaties with the colonizers and mixed with them and became what we know today as Native Americans, the more light-skinned ones. And they signed the treaties and later got the casinos and all of that. Then there were some Native Black people that they attempted to enslave. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us this. This is part of our teachings. And it's documented. You can see it. Go read They Came Before Columbus, Ivan Van Sertima. His lectures are all over YouTube. I encourage you all. My car is always a rolling university. If I get in the car and I know I got to drive over more than 20 minutes, I find me something I can learn real quick. My point is, there were those who they attempted to enslave. They couldn't enslave them in a lot of cases because they knew the terrain better than the colonizers. Okay? Oftentimes when they talk about the ones that taught them how to farm and showed them different things, maybe were the ones from the higher civilized society who they later went in and killed and took their buildings. Some of the natives were actually enslaved. So when they started bringing us over here in the late 1500s, they had some people that were on the plantation that were Black that they had already enslaved. And so some of us come from that ancestral line. They also had some that owned slaves themselves. And then there were others that helped the slaves. So now here you bringing millions of people over through the middle passage across the Americas. You mixing them with these other Black people that you have savagely raped and slaughtered. So when you trace back the DNA, we get our DNA, they say, oh, you're Fulani, you're Yoruba, you're this, you're that, because they bring it all from the database that they use that's West Sub-Saharan Africa. But you don't know if that's where you're from or not. I have Fulani on both sides of my DNA, and the Fulanis were migrants. They were in northeastern Africa and different places. That's the reason why you can meet a Black person in America and they'll look like an Asian, or will look like any number of tribes, any mixture of tribes. Then, of course, we were mixing with the colonizer. So there's so much, I don't think it was called India at the time. No, it was not called India. He misread the directions that they had gotten from the African explorers, and he thought he was in India. But no, there's if you study Columbus, there's documentation where the Spanish and the French had the maps from the explorers, the Black explorers who had traveled across the Atlantic. And they took the maps and attempted to follow them. And that's why we're so superhuman. Honestly, because we are such a mixture of so many different Black cultures and Black people. So and that's why I like the word Black. Because most of us don't know who we are and likely will never know. But now there's this divide where, and let me say it this way. There's always been a PR campaign against Blackness. Nobody wants to be African. Nobody wants to be Black American. There's this PR campaign that exists. And until we dissolve that, it's going to continue to have power. Because you have no idea. You don't know who you are. And we're such a perfect blend and a perfect mix that we have, as a group of people, we have the most inventions that are used in modern day society. We are fabulous athletes and artists and highly intelligent. It's all divine. And so we just have to settle down and revel, in my opinion, in who we are. That's a whole, I didn't mean to talk about that today, but I just been seeing that a lot online. And I was like, that stop acting like they got over here and there was just one people and they was living in these tents, and that wasn't necessarily the case. There were different levels of native people that were here and had been here for thousands of years. Those that had been here for 16,000, 10,000 years, they in many cases were way more advanced than what they show us on television when they say, oh, these were the Native Americans. And you can't tell me that these colonizers got out of jail, came here to America, 50,000 of them, had horses, buggies, chisels. The number one thing that they had was the gun. Were it not for the gun, they could never have taken over the planet. But they used the gun. But when they got here, horse, buggy, chisels, you telling me they built these big giant buildings that we see now that were built in the 1600s and 1700s that are still standing? This is why, let me tell y'all something. In this world that we're living in now, if you're buying real estate, you better look around and see, is it areas where you got really old buildings still there? That's going to tell you that the native people settled in a certain part of an area, whether it's around lakes or rivers, but they settled there for a reason. Do your research. Don't run out to the plains chasing behind white folks, because they oftentimes flew out there because of white flight. They didn't want to be around us, because as we started to migrate during the Great Migration, the cities began to overflow with us. They don't want to be around us. So they went out to the plains. But we don't know the weather cycles. We're not tuned in to that part of us that should know it. And you don't know where you are in a weather cycle. As soon as they tell you, well, you can't get flood insurance in this area, you better hightail it back to the city and find a way to make it work in the city or somewhere. But look and see where the natives settled when they came to Chicago, or when they came to Cleveland, or when they was in Atlanta. Where did they go? Because they were more in tune with nature and all of that, and they knew the cycles of weather. That's just my theory. That's just my theory. And I've always used that when it came to real estate. Always. And I'm pretty good at picking out real estate properties. I've done a really good job at that. And that's what I'm trying to tell you. Be mindful of going out into the plains. I talk about this in my new ebook, which will bring us to that, the ebook on separation. When we're choosing areas where we want to live, if we decide to build a new territory down, let me break this down. And I talk about this in the book. Just like I just talked about the different layers of, I'm going to call it Native Americans for now, that were already here in America. From the highly civilized that were building energy centers and using colored glass to harness energy and heal, and building pyramids that allowed them to line up frequencies from those people to the those that were maybe a little more quote unquote primitive, if you will, that were living in the teepees and tents and things like that. They're different levels of us. When we start talking about separation, okay, when the gods started telling us, y'all need to separate, that means the process of separation already began. And it's never as black and white as we're just going to go out into the plains and build a homestead and start living there. Everybody ain't going to do that. That's impossible. Okay. Yes, we want a territory. We got to make sure we pick a territory where the land is fertile, where the weather cycles are in our favor, where there's water, where it's accessible to where we can get the things that we need. And some of us may have to be separated. Some of our people are still sick, and so they may not be able to be mixed with the rest of society. So they may have to go somewhere and get trained. But the process of separation has already began, okay? Many of us are living in these little towns and townships and villages right now that are all Black. The population is Black. The government is Black. That's a form of separation. Where you live there, now you have to figure out how to self-govern. That's a form of separation. Some of us are going to go into cities that have been wasted and abandoned. And, you know, of course, I talk about in the book how we have to figure out what's wrong there. What's the water supply? Why was it abandoned? Was there a chemical dump there? Are there environmental issues? But some of us are going to go into wasted cities, like it talks about in the Bible, and we're going to fix those up and revive them. That's a form of separation and self-governance. Some of us are going to the new territories where we may start out with a homestead. Somebody got to do farming because we're not going to be able to continue to eat this food. We got to be able to go to the farmers markets and to the places. It's so funny because as soon as I start talking about this, the internet starts messing up. But I'll be off of it in a minute and y'all can give us back our internet. Some of us are going to go to the homesteads and be farmers where they can bring food into the areas where we live. And some of us are going to stay right where we are and become part of the government structure as these towns and cities begin to fall. So I believe that separation going forward is a multifactorial approach. I believe it's already started. I believe that when it came out of the mouths of the people like the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, because you're dealing with the mind of God, I believe that as soon as he said it in motion. You got to remember, you're dealing with the mind of God. That's the reason why when we, especially when it comes to being a member of the Nation of Islam, people don't really understand. So much of it is dealing with the self-improvement process. And the sooner you begin to cycle through the self-improvement process, the sooner you can be more effective when it comes to self-governance. Okay. So I have a new ebook that is on Amazon. It's called Separation. Self-governance. Separation is the process. So if you go to Amazon, either search my name or search self-governance and you'll be able to get it. And right now that one's just an ebook. Okay. Then I have some others, but I have another one that's a paperback and an ebook called The Right to Compete. And this is something that all of these books that I'm going to be releasing in the next several months are things that I've already written. I mentioned to you all that when I wrote The Mind of an Entrepreneur, I had about 300 or 400 pages that I finished, but I only put out 150 because I didn't really have a lot of confidence in myself. That book that I wrote that didn't have a lot of confidence is my bestseller. Of course, it's the oldest one, but it still sells. It outsells even the Art and Science of Business, probably because it's so big. It's got a lot of information in it. But I have a couple thousand pages of things that I've written that I'm just going to start releasing. So I'm letting y'all know. But when it comes to self-governance and when it comes to this transition here in America, one of the things that I've been talking about and studying for years is, and let me go back to separation, because somebody made a stank comment on one of my posts and said, if you got a plan for separation, why would you put it in the book? And I said, do you really think I'm stupid enough to put the whole plan in the book? I don't even think anybody knows the whole plan. I know I don't. But I'm just alerting us to what has already began. And I think we need private think tanks, just like Charlie Kirk and them raised all them $80 million so they can create those think tanks. That's what I think we need. All right. So going back to the right to compete, there are laws that have been set up in commerce here in the United States that are supposed to protect a person from being impeded for the right to compete, or gives you the right to compete. So in other words, if somebody is doing something to you that prevents you to compete in commerce, that is illegal in the United States of America. Okay. And I go through that all the laws in the book. And one of the things I point out, and I did touch on Byron Allen's case. I'm not an attorney, so I'm not giving you any legal advice. But one of the things that I did point out is that when racism and discrimination is used as a tool and it impedes our ability to compete, that is illegal. And sometimes when we bring the case, it's more of a focus on the racism and the discrimination instead of the remedy that the law says that you can get when somebody impedes your ability to compete. These are antitrust and anti-competitive laws that are already on the books. And I talk about the right to compete and the types of lawsuits that we need to be bringing against people who are stopping us from competing. I wrote another ebook that started as a letter to the mayor of Chicago, because there are silent forces in place that prevent oftentimes us as Black people who follow Islam in the city of Chicago and many cities around the United States of America that impedes our ability to compete. And so what I'm doing is I'm taking this to the government and saying, listen, either put some kind of thing in place where we have somewhere where we can go and report these kind of things. In the Right to Compete book, I talk about something that the FTC can begin to do. And I talk about how helping us to compete will help reduce the race wealth gap, which will help the dollar and the GDP and possibly help cushion the fall of America. Now, this is just, to me, it's just good business. And to sit there and say, we're going to keep our foot on the necks of Black people and do everything we can to prevent them from competing in commerce is bad business. It's bad business. I have some statistics in there that talk about how oftentimes we go into business, and I watch a lot of shows where I'm paying attention to Black people going into business, and we don't realize the systemic setup that is oftentimes there that is designed to prevent us from competing. And so I'm talking, and so I won't give away the whole book, but I talk about some of those things and the ways in which we need to deploy anti-competitive and antitrust law to stop people from preventing us from competing in the world of commerce and business, because we got to reduce this racial gap. We're not going to keep sitting around here being poor and not being able to participate. And the way things are set up is that if we don't work for somebody like Thomas Edison or somebody and allow them to take the patent and credit for our invention, then the benefit of who we are and the contribution that we have that we can give to society will never be known. And so I talk about the Industrial Revolution in there and all of us and all of that. Thank you, Speed. Say your mind is so important to us. Please stay strong. Thank you. Thank you so much. So that's that one. And then we're gonna there's some more that I'll be putting out from writings that I have, because at the same time we have a lot of responsibility on us, because at the same time of learning how to self-govern ourselves, we got to get over Willie Lynch. We got to self-improve. We got to get our health together in the face of all this poison that's coming here. We got to be little urban farmers, and it's a lot that we got to do. And so I'm just here to support all the responsibility that we have. And I don't believe that Allah would put that on us if we could not survive. Okay. And so for me, I had to have a turnaround, and I had this turnaround about September of last year. Stop waiting for somebody to tap you and say, hey, Sajdah, can I see some of that stuff you've written? And just start putting it out. Start putting it out there, and, it can be used. And if I'm on a think tank or advisory board or something like that, I'm happy to lend what I've studied all these years and be of value to, whatever I'm on. But I do believe that we need more think tanks and advisory boards so that we can figure out this self-governance process and strategize, because we can't just keep talking about it. There's a lot of talking, a lot of let's have a town hall, let's have a conversation. But at some point, we have to begin to strategize. And so that's what I'm driving towards in The Right to Compete. That book is also in paperback as well as an ebook. The separation is just an ebook for now. Okay. And I'll let y'all know what's coming out later. Something we are having tomorrow night, and I pray that all of you get registered. We got a 2-for-1 deal going. So the reservations are $25, but you can get 2 for 1, so you can split it with somebody. So it'll be $12.50 a piece. But we are doing, I'm calling it a healing replay, because we've had, and some of you all know this, we've had some amazing events at the Honorable Elijah Muhammad House over the last few years. And many of them, some of you all got a chance to come, some didn't. Some didn't really understand what we were doing. I understand that we have to be patient with ourselves when you're creating something new, and when you're turning around 400 years of PR and propaganda. It takes time. So if you think it's going to be add water and stir, it's just not going to be that. So we are doing a replay of 75 years of Mahalia Jackson, performed by Tammy McCann. It's a musical dedication to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. It's a fabulous presentation where she's presenting, singing some Mahalia Jackson songs. There's stories in the between. I come on at the beginning and tell you a little bit about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, but you really get a sense of the type of unity and what is needed in our community in order for us to go forward. It's absolutely fabulous. Okay. So those tickets are available on Eventbrite. Also, they're all over my social media. You can get the link. There's a QR code. It's tomorrow night at 7 p.m. If you all are interested in the talk back, I've been playing around about whether or not we're going to do the talk back. My concern is that if we show the event at 7 and it's over like at 8:30, I don't know if y'all going to want to hang around to do a talk back afterwards. And so my spirit is telling me to have the talk back on another day. I just have to make sure my participants are available, because I really want you to get the full absorption of what we're talking about. We're talking about historic preservation, how important it is, why we must begin to tell our stories. And in this case, using music as a form of healing. Excuse me. It's incredible. Excuse me. Absolutely incredible. Excuse me. I've been struggling with my allergies. Let me do a commercial and I'll come back. All right, I'm back. I didn't want to cough in y'all's face or sneeze in y'all's face, but I'm back. So let's see. That's that. The Mahalia event tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Central Time. You don't want to miss it. I think there's about 20 or so 2-for-1 tickets left because I only did 50 of those. And some of them are already gone. But if you don't have $25, or maybe you don't feel like it's worth $25, pay the $12.50, pay the $25 and give a ticket to somebody else. And I guarantee you'll say, oh yeah, this is way worth it. Really should have been a couple $100. But one of the things that we understand is that everybody's vibration is not at the point where they can pay $500 for a ticket, because a lot of us don't even love ourselves enough to where we would pay $500 to access healing. Do y'all realize that? Most of us won't even invest in healing ourselves outside of what our insurance company will pay for. So if the insurance ain't paying for it, we'd be like, well, insurance ain't paying for that. And many of us just go ahead and die or go ahead and suffer with a disease. But to save this beautiful body and machine that we've been in, we should be willing to do everything from taking out a second mortgage on the house. If we got to go to Thailand or go get us some stem cells, we should be ready to heal. We should be ready to do what we need to do spiritually, mentally, and physically to improve and making our community a safe place to live is begins with us as a person. So that's that, the 2 ebooks, and make sure you're tuned in tomorrow night. 75 years of Mahalia Jackson, performed by Tammy McCann. It's a replay of an event that we had at the house. And this is the only time we're going to replay it. The link will be dead after we show it. So you won't get to go back and look at it because it is proprietary information. And my sister's building an entire production around it. And she's going to be taking it on the road. So you get this beautiful snippet of it. And if you were there, you saw the power and the beauty and the love that was there. And we didn't, we've been very careful about putting everything out into the public. I'll tell you a little bit about that because I think that's important for us to know. Because those of us that think that we're so good at business, we are oftentimes critical of people and we say, well, why don't they do this and why don't they do that? Let me start with when I was building the Black Muslim Business Directory, and we still have that database, and we are going to be starting it back up soon. probably at least once a day, I got a call from somebody in Asia that wanted to buy the database or who wanted to run the database. And they attempted to take it and hack it so many times. And I honestly could not find someone who really wanted to just dedicate that to that and focus on it, because it really was becoming a good money maker. And I get it. You got to have the spirit for that kind of thing. So I'm not faulting anybody, but there were a lot of things that we needed to put in place to protect the data and protect the information. And since we didn't have like an engineer type of person that I felt like we could trust to begin to do that, I took it down. But the attempts to steal it and take the information was surreal. It was probably about the same as what we experienced when we developed the concepts we were using at the clinics and hospital and vascular disease in Maryland or in the DC metro area. People literally would pull up and take pictures up front and then go and say it was their center. I mean, and so I'm familiar with that. And so I was going to just keep my head down and keep building and going. And then oftentimes Allah will allow the enemy to pull you out, and maybe they'll attack you. And then now you got to come out in front. And so I'm careful about posting every move that we're making, because the devil is busy, and the devil stay busy, whether it's messing with the internet, whether it's sending threatening phone calls or threatening letters, whether it's stank comments. And I'm here for the smoke. I just want to make sure that I protect what we are doing. So I ask you to go to my websites, make sure you're joining all of my mailing lists, make sure that you stay close on social media, and find other ways other than the traditional public outreach to stay in touch. Okay, I'll leave it at that. But right now, if you go on social media, there are flyers and QR codes for the Mahalia event that I think that you all will find is life-changing. We actually have had a number of life-changing events that you may very well get to see. And there's lots of things coming up here for the fall. This is stacking up to be a super busy fall, which I am extremely excited about. And in addition, I'm going to keep releasing these works. I'm not going to sit back waiting for somebody to tap me and say, hey, can we use you? Because I've learned that people don't do that. They just don't do it. But I would love it, but it's just not happening. So God Cage said, ASA, looking forward to our consultation. Hearing you speak about business tells me you can change way more. You could charge way more. You're doing us a favor at that price. Yes. And I get a lot of majority owned or white companies that want to hire me and put me on their team and then charge, like there was one the other day that they wanted me to sign basically like a label, like a record label, sign with them, and they would charge between they had packages, $5,000, $7,500, and $10,000 for my stuff, and whatever I taught or came up with or wrote, I had to give basically the rights or part of the rights over to them. It really was like an entertainment industry contract. And I've had so many people that I've worked with in the past that say, you really, really should not be doing this either for free or, oh, and they also said, they don't want me to do the podcast because they feel like it's too much valuable information. So basically it was like, we're just going to monetize you. And I said, well, you know what? I am here on the planet. I'm gonna get what I need when I need it. That ain't gonna never be a problem. Because that's just the knowing that I walk with. But I'm not going to make myself not accessible in a sense to my people, because I don't believe that I've learned what I've learned and been where I've been and done what I've done for it to just be for me. And most importantly, for it to be for you all. And so if our people don't have the consciousness yet where they would say, okay, we're going to pay $5,000 to work with her, they'll get there. They'll get there and we'll figure it out. But it is what it is. Even with the books and ebooks, I'm not charging a ton of money for it, because if just one person reads it or one person has a session with me and they turn themselves around, there are a lot of people that have worked with me and they will say, man, I'm now a millionaire, or I now have a best-selling book, or I came out of my shell, or now I can take care of my family. I was working with somebody the other day who was or is a returning citizen who was saying to me during our last session that because of these sessions and us getting them going with their business and giving them ways in which they can operate outside of a system that is going to impede their ability to compete, they are now taking care of their family and they had X amount of dollars in the bank and they're just so grateful. That means a lot to me. That's important to me. It's okay for us to learn these traditional things. Yeah, we, got to have these things, but you also have to be creative and learn to be a builder. And so I'm doing a series of what I'm going to call Builders Days coming up this fall. And with the Builders Days, we are learning to be builders. And we're going to learn how, if we're working on a job, how to train our mind to see the things that we need to see in order to be builders. Because here's what happens. When you graduate from college, you get a relatively good job and everybody's bragging about you. And there's a hierarchy. You really start to think that you're the shit. But what you don't realize is that even if you're working at a firm and they're very nice and they appear to care about you, 9 times out of 10, they are not teaching you to build a firm or to make that level of difference. You got to have an eye for it. You got to be looking at how these contracts are constructed. You got to be looking at how the system within the business is constructed. How do the associates connect and create congruency within the organization? And I think for a lot of us at that early stage, when we first graduate, there's a level of arrogance. And I will honestly tell you, and I don't do this a lot where I do a lot of comparison, but I will honestly tell you is that I've never had that level of arrogance. Partly because I went into firms where they didn't like me and didn't want me there, and I wasn't a friend. So I had to be the spook that sat by the door. I had to be. And Allah kept putting me in competitive environments where it took all of me to figure out how to get in there and survive. And that was the tool that I used. And I believe that in some way, in some form or fashion, that's the reason why I'm going to, inshallah, do better and do my part and release some of these business writings and self-improvement things that I've written based on things that I've learned, because there's so much of life that Allah did not allow me to access, that he took from me while he pushed me deeper into the business world. And I said, you know what? I know that this is for your glory. And if it's for your glory, I'm going to start doing my part. I'm not running for office. I'm not going to go be in Congress, but I can be an advisor for a politician who wants to do something different. There's a lot, but and we'll talk more about that. But there were a lot of things that he kept me from, didn't allow me to do. You couldn't have told me when I was 21, 22 years old, just starting out as a young Muslim, that I wasn't going to be a married MGT with a bunch of little children with little headpieces and FOI uniforms running around. You couldn't have told me that. I used to dream about that. And I always was articulate, but I wasn't good at speaking spontaneously in front of people and helping people solve problems until I literally just kind of got dumped in our MGT and GCC orientation class, because nobody wanted to go in there. I can't remember if it was Sister Aisha or Sister Charlene, but one of them was like, Sister Wendy, you go in there. I remember Sister Virginia, when I first came in, used to have me talking and teaching. But what I learned from that, because there were so many sisters coming in, because the minister was on the road, there was the Stop the Killing tours, there was all that stuff going. And so I had to learn how to look in a sister's face and say, let me help find the switch in her to turn on her love for Allah and help her to get on this road to self-improvement. And that didn't come from, I don't believe that class can be cookie cuttered. You have to have a divine person in front of that person, because each person is different. Some people come and they'll say, I used to be a stripper. Some used to be prostitutes. Some are corporate people. Some are people who don't know what it means to be Black. There's all these different types of women and men that come into the fold, into the Nation of Islam. And you need a person in front of them that can, yes, there's the structural materials, but you got to be able to go inside their mind and pick from the menu of items that represent the supreme wisdom and figure out what you need to apply in order to convert them. And that is one of the greatest blessings that Allah has ever given me, from the business and all of that. That's one thing. But that right there, when I travel around the country, when I go to the mosque and I see sisters that are still here, I'm so honored and grateful that he trusted me enough to participate in that. And I was so humbled and trepidatious and concerned that it then started me on the road of beginning to study, and every single day, because I didn't want to mess up. I didn't, and so I'm grateful, for that kind of thing. And so in business, that same process of knowing how to look at a situation, a problem, something that we're building, something that we're developing, and say, all right, what do I need to do to get this done? And let me figure it out. And let me learn how to navigate the vicissitudes of business to make it happen. Even improving my own mind so that I'm not dealing in poverty consciousness, to where I'm not always stressed out and worried. Learning how to mathematically approach something, not being selfish, because that's the other piece of it. Because a lot of us don't have the skills. We go into this emotional thing where once we get low on money or we start hustling, I'm in sales mode, then we find it easy to diss somebody else. And that's another thing you'll find with me. I'm not going to dish you over a couple of dollars. And if the money is big enough and they say, okay, you know, Sajdah, we're going to give you this $1 million project, I'm just going to bring you along with me if you're working with me. And say, okay, come on, let's figure out how we're going to chop this up. But we got to get out of this mindset, because some people will sell you out over just a meeting or introduction. They'll come around you, and then you could be talking to somebody, and then next thing you know, they'll get their number and sell you out. And those kind of things, I learned very early in business that that's the quickest way to poverty consciousness. So anyway, with that, I want to thank you all for joining today. We got the 2 ebooks, the ebook on separation. Okay. Then we got the ebook and paperback on our right to compete, that explores the laws that are on the books that we can use to weaponize and combat when racism and discrimination is used to prevent us from competing. This is especially important for us as Muslims to begin to pay attention to, because the elephant in the room is that we are always being blocked, in essence, from going into business. Whether we're building the salon or whatever it is that we're trying to do, we catch a lot of criticism because we have not done what the template that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad left us says that we should do. A lot of that is because the antitrust and anti-competitive violations that are deployed against us by people who don't like our leader. And then on top of that, you get people who now are sellouts, who will say, well, you know, I can get with the Muslims behind the scenes. They can be on my board, but I'm not putting them on the main stage. And I keep saying this to y'all, that we are the most investment worthy group, collective body of people right now in the world. And I know that's a bold statement, and I know y'all don't like that, but we are, because of the comprehensive way in which we've been taught to approach life, number one. Number two, because of the way in which we've been taught to share and want for our brothers and sisters what we want for ourselves. Some of us are still dealing with the residue of selfishness and the mind of the colonizer. Some of us are still stealing each other's ideas, but as a collective group, when you compare it to other groups, it's minuscule. And I'm doing everything I can to get us out of that colonizer's mindset. If somebody else comes up with an idea, don't go jack their stuff. And then you get on the internet and start. I see it all the time. People do it to me all the time. Oh, I'm going to just do what she do, and then I'm going to say I'm doing it. And then look you in your face like, who you think you are? Look, if you're inspired by something that somebody does, be inspired by it, and that's okay. Modeling, inspiration, that's good. But add your touch to it. Do something bigger and better with it. Don't just completely jack somebody's stuff and then look at them like they crazy. That is a colonizer's predatory, capitalistic way of doing business. And some of us are so used to stealing. This is just how we live our lives, because we're just thieves. This is something that we have to uproot out of ourselves, even as Muslims, because we may find that it may have a level of success. So if I put my foot on her neck, then I can go and do what she does. And then maybe I'm in a certain privileged position, then I could access the revenue that she maybe can't access because she don't know the people that I know. or he's not in the circles that I'm in. As Muslims, that happens all the time in the quote unquote world. As Muslims, it happens, not as much there, but it's all stuff we got to work on. We have to decolonize our mind, and decolonize our mind specifically when it comes to money. Specifically. So if you want a coaching session, you can go to booksajdahwendymuhammad.com, and there's a link there. You can get signed up, and I can work with you and help you with some of these decolonization methods that I've been blessed to learn. But in the meanwhile, we'll go from there. Let me see who we got in the chat here. Let's see what we got. I know we've been going over lately. I've been having a lot to say. That's okay. We'll be all right. And if you gotta get off, you can go. It is okay. Let's see who we got. I see Brother Lamont in the building. He says, Walaikum salam. Good morning and happy Saturday. Speed gives the greetings. We talked about some of your comments. Thank you so much. I see Mom's in the house. She says, happy Saturday. Bless you. Thank you, Mom. Bless you too. Speed talked about the show yesterday where we honored Sister Shalon and her making her transition. We continue to pray for her and her family, and we pray that her transition was a peaceful one and that Allah is pleased with her. And she is such a courageous sister. Go back and check out that show. We wanted to honor her courageousness and hope that it inspires you. Letitia Smith says, salam, sis. So we were talking about Native American culture and the different levels of Native American culture and I use the word Native American loosely because that is not what they were called, but that is what they became called. And many of us are descendants of those different levels. Chance QGTM says, peace and blessings, dear sister and viewers. Thank you so much, Chance. God Cage said that they're looking forward to the consultation. I think we read that already. Brother Jamil's in the building. He says, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Brother Jamil. Make sure y'all go and book. He's got a one-man show coming up. And if you missed the show that Brother Jamil was on, that was now 2 weeks ago, go check it out. And he's telling his story and also demonstrating the importance of self-preservation and telling our story and recognizing our history in his one-man show that's coming up. I think you'll find it interesting. It's this movement that we're doing when it comes to storytelling is about patronage. It's about learning how to redirect our money consciousness so that we support one another differently, right? I posted a interview that Brother Tyrese was having where he says he wears fake jewelry and he don't have these $250,000 watches on and he loses them and all this. And I say, yeah, because I say this, he didn't say this, and I'm not saying this negatively to him, but that $250,000 watch can support a program. And that's just how we have to start thinking. Let's see. Light Bearers in the building, 459 says, ASA family, Assalamu alaikum. Yes, yes, and yes. Brother Jamil says, sellouts got to get the hell out. Yeah, the sellouts we got to start outing them so that they can, and even outing the behavior, because some people are sellouts and they don't even know that they're sellouts. Sometimes you can be a sellout because you're lazy, or because you have a thing in your brain about how you think something is supposed to go. You're telling a story in your brain like it's supposed to happen like this, but it's not. And then you end up selling out. Nicodemus in a business suit. Yeah. And tie. Yep. That is so real. Let's see. And Speed said one man show. Wow. Yeah. One man show. It's going to be in Brooklyn, New York, and you can get the tickets on Eventbrite. So You guys got to check that out. And if you can get to Brooklyn and make it to Brooklyn, do that. If you're on the East Coast, y'all should just fill up the seats. We shouldn't even have no more seats left. But I think here's the plan. I think if you all register for the virtual event that we're having tomorrow that is online, and you see the quality and the level of the presentation from the virtual event, 75 years of Mahalia Jackson at Carnegie Hall, sign up for that. We got a 2-for-1 special going on. So you pay the $25, you get two tickets. So it could be for you and somebody else. Have a watch party at your house. Because see, and I'm going to speak for myself here. Jamil might be like, no, don't do this. But if you do, let me say it this way. If you do this, then it may encourage you to go to Brooklyn, because you'll say, man, the Muslims be having some good programs. And we're going to keep showing you, because we're going to be moving into movies and documentaries, because we want you all to see how we believe that art should be presented and conversations and history should be preserved. We're not trying to reprogram the low vibrations of your chakra. We're trying to elevate you and use art and music and science to help elevate, get you thinking, motivate you. We want you walking away from our programs going, wow. So I guarantee you, if you pay this little money for the program tomorrow night, you're going to want to get to Brooklyn to see Brother Jamil's show and other shows that you will see that we'll be doing, because I got a movie script written already. We got animated series coming out. Just look at the stuff that our brother Ben X is putting out on Yakub. This stuff is life-changing. Life-changing. And we need you all's continued support. Just like with this program, make sure you like and subscribe, interact in the chat. When we come on, put us on a couple of screens so that it increases the viewership, because the more impactful we become with these shows, the more the enemy is going to come. But we just got a God that's going to swoop down and just keep elevating, keep elevating, keep elevating. Because we are determined that what comes from us and what goes across the airwaves is all about changing our lives for the good. All right. So Brother Rizza has an anime coming out too. Yes, he sure does. I'm sorry, I forgot about Brother Rizza's. We got some stuff happening. And let me tell y'all, see, we don't gatekeep. We're supporting one another. If I see any of my brothers or sisters that got something going on, I will put it on 2 screens. I'll put it on my laptop and my desktop and let it roll so they get extra viewers. I'll tell people, I share. You go to my page, I'm always sharing people's stuff. I'm so grateful and so honored that I am not a hater. God, I'm glad I don't have that. Brother Jamil says, art should be a healing, and Sajdah House is doing a great job. Thank you, Brother Jamil. Yeah, art should heal. It should motivate. It should inspire you. So support Brother Rizza and his anime coming out. Support the stuff we're doing with Sajdah House. Support NFA and the stuff that they're doing. Support Brother Ben's stuff. You know, we got an orchestra, a youth orchestra, and inside the mosque. Support that. We got a waltz group. You know, some of those bigger, we have been toying around with doing the waltz and even the orchestra at the house. We just don't really quite have the capacity for that many people, but we're going to continue with our living room entertainment series and all this wonderful stuff that we got coming up. And we're going to acquire other venues so that we can continue to use them to tell our story of the great work that we've been doing almost now 100 years. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is incredible. And so when you're talking about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, you're talking about the mind of God. And trust me, when he told us to do something, it's already beginning. The process is already beginning. When he said separate, he's not waiting for us to wake up and separate. It's already happening. We just got to get with the program. That's why I said, no. I said, why are you sitting on all this stuff? You waiting for somebody to tap you and say, hey, come work over here and come do this or that. No, he put this in you, put this stuff out here to the public. And so that's what I've been doing. And I've been using Amazon as a platform. A lot of people have said, well, you should use this, that, but I want it to be where the most people can get at it. And we'll also use another platform if you give me another one where we can put it up and put it out there. But this is for us to share and show the world what Muhammad has been making. All right, I'm out of here for real, y'all. Brother Jamil said haterism is a chronic and fatal disease. It is. I am so grateful that I'm not a hater, that I'm not one of these women that don't like other women and don't like older women and younger women. And I am so honored that Allah didn't make me a hater. There's a lot of things that many of us have to overcome, but for me, haterism is not one of them. And I am grateful. And I feel sorry for you if you got to work on, you got some little deceptive intelligence that's making you a hater up in there. That one ain't mine. All right, family. May Allah bless each and every one of you. Get your reservation for the Mahalia Jackson event. Go to Facebook, go to Instagram, my TikTok. It's everywhere. You can click the link. If you're on the mailing list, you've either gotten a text or an email about it. If you still don't have it, you didn't get none of that, go to Eventbrite. Okay. And I am certain that when you start to see what we're doing in the world of art, is more than partying, is more than juking and dancing. It is next level artistic expression. All right. And with that, family, may Allah bless each and every one of you. Assalamu alaikum.